Good morning, church. It is an honor to be with you this morning, and I want to thank Wayne for giving up the pulpit for me. That's not an easy thing for a preacher to do, but it does give me a chance a couple of times a year to wear a tie, so I appreciate that, and I appreciate him so much, him and Cindy, for the great work that they do here, for their encouragement to me, and the many things that they do behind the scenes for this Eastside family. So thank you to them. I appreciate the prayer this morning. I appreciate Brooke and his choice of songs. We want to rescue the perishing, and the gospel is for all, and we're going to see how those songs are going to play out in today's lesson. I am happy to announce this morning, if you weren't already aware of this, that the elders have approved a mission trip to Honduras this coming summer. They have been nothing but supportive to me and to our efforts to do this trip, and so I want to thank them for that. And we're going to spend some time this morning talking about the mission trip that's coming up. We're going to get into why we're going, where we're going, how we're going, who we're going with, and try to answer some of those fundamental questions. And it's something that I want, as we go through this, I hope that in some way your heart would be touched, whether you might be someone that would be interested in going on the trip with us, or if you're not able to do that for whatever reason, you'll be looking for ways that you could tap into this trip and support this trip, because it really is something that literally everyone at this congregation could be involved in some way. And so that's what we're going to try to convey this morning. So let's start with why we're going. From Mark 16:15, and he said to them, "Go into all the world and proclaim the gospel to the whole creation." So this is a familiar passage to us. We probably memorized it in our Bible classes as young people. Just want to emphasize a couple of words here. First of all, we start with go. That is an action verb. Okay, that is an action verb, something that we are to do. We are to certainly send missionaries, and we do that. And we are to pray for our missionaries, and I hope we're doing that. And we are to financially support our missionaries. And if you look at our bulletin, you can see a list of the different missionaries and missions that this congregation supports. So those are all important things, necessary things. But we also need to be willing to go, to be part of that action verb. We need people who are willing to be the missionaries. Okay, it can't just be sending others, supporting others. We need people that are willing to go. And it says all over the world. Well, where is that? That's everywhere. We talked in Bible class this morning about trying to set limits on who is our brother, how much we should forgive, and that kind of a thing. And this, to me, opens up that aperture again. We're to go to all the world. We're to go to orphanages, we're to go to homeless shelters, we're to go to prisons, we're to go to East Tennessee and the United States and all around the world. And what do we do when we get there? The last part there, we're to proclaim the gospel. We want to do good things. We want to relieve suffering like Jesus did, but ultimately we want to point people to Christ. We want to baptize people, which is the next verse. We want to baptize people. We want to make disciples. And a lot of that is going to be based on us being willing to go. So who are we going with? We're going to go with an organization known as Torch Missions. It was founded in 1988 by Steve Davidson and Miguel Aguilar. At the time, Steve had gone on a mission trip and was very much impacted by it, saw the potential of good that can be done. He was a youth minister at the Volti Church of Christ and a Freed-Hardeman graduate, and he got the bug, I think you could say. He went on to become an elder. I believe he's an elder now. And he teamed up with a guy from Honduras, Miguel, from Tegucigalpa, and they got this idea, what if we put together some Christians to go over on a regular basis? And so they did that. Torch is overseen by a board of directors. I know each of them very well. I'm friends with each of them, and I have served with each of them on foreign mission fields. For our particular trip, it will be led by Tim Hines and his wife, Marcia, and they are from Louisiana, really solid people, and I'm looking forward to some of you getting a chance to meet them. So Torch was founded in 88. Their mission statement there, I'm going to read, serving the impoverished and providing benevolent relief to those who suffer from the effects of poverty, disaster, and insufficient medical care. They want to take the gospel to those we serve and share the love of Jesus, not only through words, but also through actions. Torch focuses on the 5 countries that 5 or 6 countries you see there. The work that I've done with them has been primarily in Honduras and Costa Rica. And like I said, our trip this year is going to be to Honduras. So why Honduras? Well, I don't want to overwhelm you with statistics this morning, but let me give you a few. Honduras is the 2nd poorest country in Latin America and one of the poorest in the world. Their per capita monthly income is $211 US. So just imagine what it would be like to try to get through a month on $211. 73.6% poverty rate, and approximately 1 in 5 Hondurans lives in extreme poverty. And we're going to see that poverty. We're going to be right in the midst of it. They have a big problem with gangs and organized crime and the flow of drugs through the country, and we'll talk more about that a little bit later. They have 38 homicides per 1,000 people, and back when I first went to Honduras, the congregation I was with, it was known as the murder capital of the world. It had the highest murder rate of any country in the world. They have since lost that title. They're still pretty high, but they're not the capital anymore. Religiously, they're about 47% Catholic, 36% Protestant, and 17% unchurched or other. And so clearly there is a mission field there that is ripe for some work. We're going to look this morning at the 5 focus areas that Torch Missions gets involved in. You can see them listed there. Let's begin with evangelism. I'm a little bit hesitant to list evangelism as a separate mission area because if you think about it, evangelism affects all of the areas. It's more of, I would view it more as a foundation to a building on which the other 4 pillars, the other 4 mission areas sit. And so everything we do in one way or another, we're trying to point people to Jesus and encourage people and share the love of Christ. How do we do that in this area? Well, we do it. We do worship services with them. The place we're going to be staying has a church that Torch planted on the grounds. We also go out in the community and do worship services. Torch has been involved in church plants in a number of places, Agua Agria and others. We will do vacation Bible schools. You see a couple of photos of that going on. There will be seminars for men, seminars for women, ladies' days, that kind of a thing. The distribution of Bibles in communities. And I will note that some of the people that will be going on this trip likely will not be Christians. These might be a teenager who's part of a youth group and the youth group is going, or a friend of a Christian or whatever that wants to go to Honduras and help. What's interesting is I've been a part of a couple of baptisms in Honduras of missionaries, of people who signed up for the trip to go help Hondurans, and being around other Christians and seeing the work that was done and maybe having a Bible study at night or whatever, they actually became a Christian. And that top right photo is one of the guys on the team that was baptized at Villa Gracia after having studied with his fellow missionaries. So it's not just an opportunity to serve Hondurans, but you can actually encourage the people on the trip with you and teach them. The second area is construction. We do a lot of construction. The Hondurans, many of them live in makeshift housing. You will see them in cardboard boxes. Sometimes it'll have scraps of metal on top of them, kind of forming the walls. Most of them don't have any type of plumbing, any type of potable water, so it is a very meager existence for Hondurans. So one of the areas we focus on is construction. Torch, which has been around, like I said, for 23 years, over that time span has built over 3,700 homes for Hondurans, all using the same basic floor plan. It is a proven floor plan, one that we know how to do it well. And so what will happen at a job site is we'll arrive in the morning around 8:30 or 9 with all of our tools. All of the materials will already be there. There's a missionary on the ground that lives there that gets the materials in place. And then we will meet the people that live there on most cases, not all, but most cases. We will assist them in pulling their few valuables out, and we'll be very careful to take good care of those and respect that. And then we will demolish their home. And so for the next 5 to 7 hours, they will be homeless, completely homeless. And it takes, on average, depending on the experience level of the team, about 5 to 7 hours to build one of these homes. And then we will bring them in with the team. We will give them a Bible. We will present them a starter kit. We'll present a plaque if the Bible was done as a dedication to someone. Like I said, we'll pray with them, encourage them, invite them to church, that kind of a thing. And then they go to bed that night in a new home off the ground. In some cases, like this past year in particular, we will also give them a water filter so they're able to filter water out of whatever their local water source is. And so construction, like I said, is a big deal. It's not just homes, though. We also build church buildings. That building on the right there in the blue is a torch church building that was built one year, and then we came back a subsequent year and painted it. This past year, we replaced a roof on a men's ministry that happened in that particular building where a local missionary, Dalton Hines, works with young Honduran men and teaching them crafts and carpentry and other skills, plumbing. And that bottom left building is the one that they got to conduct this ministry in, but the roof was leaking full of termites and other things, so we ripped the roof off, built a new roof for them. That playground is the bottom middle picture, a playground that we built in Choluteca, this poor village, very, very poor, full of young people, and they had no playground. They had a little makeshift soccer field was about it, and so we went in over the course of a couple of days and built them a playground with swings and monkey bars and all kinds of things, and they just thought that was the greatest thing they had ever seen. And as far as that top left picture, I will tell you the fastest way to get a side of a house up is to give hammers to 5 women and just turn them loose, because and that fourth one there I'm particularly impressed with, Janet. These are projects that everyone can help with. We have young people doing it, men and women, older people. It's not something where you have to have construction experience. Everybody is taught. We've seen people for the first time ever using chainsaws to cut out the door in these buildings, and we help them, and we make sure the safety is observed, but something everyone can be involved with. This particular home was built this past summer, and again, it was a family in need and a team. It wasn't the team I was on, but a team came in and built it for them, and at the end of the day, turned over the house, turned over a starter kit, prayed with them, gave them a Bible. And what's significant about this particular home to this congregation is that it was made possible by T. and Mary Bolin. They were the ones, they will not want me talking about it. So if they ever watch this, forgive me, but they provided the funds that made this particular house possible. And I will tell you, I've already let Miss Donna know this, but this coming summer, the elders have set aside money in the budget for Eastside to build a home for Dean. And so, sorry. So we're going to build a house for Dean Buchanan, and I hope Miss Donna's able to be there, and she'll be the one that's going to have the plaque, and we're going to give a Bible to whoever it is. We don't know who it is, but we're going to bless somebody, and we're going to put up a plaque and do that for Dean. All right, next area is visitation. I love this. I love all the aspects of these trips, but we're going to do a lot of visitation. We go into hospitals, special needs orphanages, children's homes. Wherever there's people in need, people that are going through a hard time, we try to go there and connect with them. One of my favorite memories from a trip several years ago, we went to a school for the blind in Tegucigalpa, And on our way there, they said, you're going to have a chance to play soccer, or football as they call it, with these young people. And I'm just kind of sitting there on the bus thinking, okay, we're going to play soccer with blind children. And I'm thinking to myself, this isn't a good thought, but I'm thinking I might have a chance to win this game. Like I might be able to beat some blind people at soccer. So we get there, and there's all these children with various special needs, including predominantly that they're blind. And so we got ready for our soccer match, and their soccer balls have bells on them. And so I thought, well, that's not fair, you know. So anyway, we played a little soccer match. I was the gringo goalie, and I lost. I lost to a bunch of blind children who cheated basically and put bells on their soccer balls. So anyway, this is a really cool part of the ministry. And what we tell people is, particularly your first couple of days there, do something outside of your comfort zone. So if you're a person that when you see that visitation, you think, man, I would love to do that. Well, then go build a house. You know, let's do some growth here. Let's get outside of our comfort zone. If you're maybe a guy that does a lot of construction and you love the idea of building a house, go to a special needs orphanage. Do something against what would be your normal thing, because that's where your eyes open up. That's where growth occurs. And so that's an important part of what we do. We also do medical. We have an on-site medical clinic that is run by Miss Gail Davidson right there at the retreat center where we are staying, and she sees patients every day. They're lined up at her door when it's starting time. We also do remote clinics in different villages throughout the area. Our team is not doing this year, but one of the teams has a bunch of doctors coming, and they are going to get on a helicopter and go somewhere to some remote village that you can only reach via helicopter to do medical care there. And so typically what happens here is the night before, team members will sit around tables like you see there, and we will divvy up pills, and we'll put them in bags, and we'll label them. And so even if you're not from a medical background, if you can count pills and put them in a baggie and put a label on them, you can be involved. Or if you're someone that's maybe elderly and you're really not comfortable going out to do construction, well, then maybe that's the day that you spend the day doing this prep work for the following day's medical clinic. So again, there's just jobs for everybody. So I talked to them about that for this coming year's trip, and they asked me, they said, do you have any doctors that might be able to come? And I said, well, I know of one that might be interested, Dr. Cool. And they said, well, that's good. That would be great. We can always use more help. And they said, could you send us a picture of him so that we can kind of get to know him a little bit? So I sent him a picture, and they haven't called back yet. So we're still going to have to work on that. I may need a certificate, Eddie, or a little more of your credentials. All right, so the next area, number 5, is benevolence. And we do a lot of this, and typically what happens here is we will have a day where we go out and buy the stuff, the flour, beans, rice, other staples, get them in these big bags. We pay for that with money that is part of the trip fee, which I'll talk about here in a minute. We will have several hours where we go into our little cafeteria area, and we will sit and measure out the beans and the rice and different things, put them in bags, put them in different parts of the room along with Bibles, Spanish Bibles. And then we will have this assembly line where we get a bag and we walk through and we give them their flour and whatever else we're going to give them, the Bible. It's about a 25-pound bag. And then we do another assembly line out to the bus, passing these bags, and we fill up the back of the bus. That's the back of the bus there, upper left, full of these bags. And then the next day, we will take all of that and go out into a poor community. And you'll get, if you can carry a 25-pound bag or 2, whatever you can do, and we will walk into these poorest of poor villages that have nothing. Some of these people are just scraping by. And we'll bring them what is basically a week's worth of food for a family of 4. So it's pretty cool to be able to do that. Sometimes we'll bring them clothes. The upper right there was a distribution of Sawyer water filters We had, I think, 100 that we gave out, and we also invited them. I had one Spanish phrase I had to memorize, how to invite them to the bus station nearby to get the seminar. And I was just like, I wish Erica was here. Erica could, and let me just say that, I hope Erica wants to go. I hope she'll be able to go, because when you're out in these communities, you get to talk to these people. And my Spanish, sadly, is very limited. I can say, en nombre de Jesus, in the name of Jesus. And I say that like 100 times that day, en nombre de Jesus, and I'm just smile. And bus station, Erica will be able to have a conversation with people, and in fact, we'll probably have to kind of move her along because she won't want to leave a place. But I love if you have Spanish skills and can come, you can really talk to these people and find out if they have any other needs, and we try to invite them to the local congregation, which may be one that Torch built. So again, it's a connection between serving others and God and the love of God, and so we try to do that through this distribution. And on the water filters, just another word there. Like I said, many of them don't have plumbing. They don't have any potable water. We built a house for a guy last year, and he literally got all of his water down the hill from a mud puddle. That's where he did his laundry. That's where he got his drinking water, was from a mud puddle, and a little bit probably from catching some rainwater that came off. But we gave the guy a water filter, a Sawyer water filter, and taught him how to use it in a bucket. And he that day he went to bed able to have clean water and a house to live in versus a little shanty. And so it's just, you have the ability to really change lives on many levels, physically, spiritually, in a lot of ways. And then this next slide here, I call other duties as required, because you just never know on a mission trip what direction the day is going to go. You may think you're there to do one thing and you end up doing something completely different. You will have opportunities there to interact with people, to interact with children, to blow bubbles with them and just smile with them, and just try to encourage them. One year we were serving a week in Honduras and another 4 or 5 days in Costa Rica, and the very last day they gave us a free day to go on what they call an excursion, and we hiked through a Costa Rican rainforest to this waterfall. So sometimes we can do stuff like that. This particular trip for this year is only going to be a week. I wanted to kind of start out with just a week. So there probably won't be a big excursion, but in future years, if we want to go longer and work in an excursion to Roatan or some other place, we could do that. You can show up at places where you end up painting nails or having your nails painted, and I can tell you that's the first time I've ever experienced that. And you may even get pulled into a Honduran arm wrestling tournament. And so you just never know what's going to happen. We were there one year in Honduras and went to a kind of a remote village. There was no place for us to stay locally. We had to stay at a hotel. And that night at the hotel, about 1 o'clock in the morning, we heard a noise in our room. And we turned on the light, and there was a bat in the room. And Janet just completely lost her mind. She just freaked out, and it was like, when can we get out of this country? No, she didn't say that. But I did get to track down a bat that night and catch it with that little towel. And I heard a lot about that bat the rest of the night and the rest of the next day. So you just never know in a foreign country what you're going to encounter. It's just very, very interesting. So let's talk about our 2023 trip. We are going to be flying to Honduras on May 25th and flying home on June 1st. We'll fly into the Palmarola International Airport in Comayagua. It is an airport that is less than 2 years old. It is really nice. We used to fly into Tegucigalpa, into the second most dangerous airport in the world, where you fly in and you can almost touch the tops of the chimneys. Very scary. We're now flying into a brand new airport that's really, really nice, so I'm glad about that. We will be staying at the Agua Viva Retreat Center in Santa Ana, and I've got a couple pictures from that coming up. The cost of the trip is $1,100, and that includes your flight. They make flight arrangements for our team. Your lodging, your transportation, the gas, any equipment that's needed, every breakfast and every dinner, and as well as money that goes towards some of the projects we'll be doing, like that food distribution. As an example, there's you need money to buy all that stuff. So it's $1,100. That doesn't include any souvenirs you might want to buy, and it doesn't include any meals out. So occasionally we might have an opportunity either at lunch, near a work site to go to a restaurant, that kind of a thing. That would be on you, but the other meals are paid for. And as I referenced earlier, the elders not only approved this trip, they did put aside some money for it in the budget. And so there will be some money that will be available. How much would be available depends on a couple of factors. How many people want to go, obviously, and then if there is other funds that other members of the congregation put forward. And I'll just tell you, we're told in the Bible to ask God of things beyond what we can, think of or imagine, to ask boldly. And so my bold, imaginative request of God is that anybody that wants to go on this trip will be able to go and not have money be the limiting factor, okay? I just think, I know you people, and I just think this congregation will step up and get people to Honduras if they want to go, and we'll find a way. And we've got people here that have the means to do it, may or may not be able to go themselves, but I just think this congregation is going to make it happen. That's just my belief, so I'm going with it. The Agua Viva Retreat Center, this is where we'll be staying. So we land the plane, we go through customs, we get on a bus, we do about an hour and 40-minute trip. On the way, we'll stop at a Walmart to get snacks and anything else you might want to get. And then we'll go to the town of Santa Ana. It's about a mile in the air at altitude, so it's cooler, which is great at night because it's nice and cool, although some of the projects we'll be working on will be further down in the valley and in Tegus, which is a lot warmer, so it could be very hot, but at least at night it's cooler. The top right picture may not seem like a big deal, but that is a very tall fence of cinder block and some barbed wire, and so we are on a gated, secure compound that not only has that going for it, but has 2 German shepherds that patrol the grounds, and they're just the most lovable thing that you could ever imagine until a stranger comes up to that gate, and then it's game on. They will go crazy. So I felt very safe there. In this particular town, like I said, it's a mile up on top of a mountain. It's a very sweet little kind of secluded community, and they just really don't have a big problem with crime there. So I feel very comfortable. The other big thing about this is we have potable water here. Past years we haven't had potable water. You had to do everything bottled or whatever, and it was a pain. And a lot of people got sick because they would make a mistake and allow some of their shower water to get in their mouth or whatever, and you just don't want to drink any of the Honduran water. But on this compound, it's 100% potable. The missionary that lives there said he's been there working there for years, it's the only potable water fountain that he has seen in the entire country is on this compound. And so it really is a nice place to stay. The food is amazing. They cook breakfast for us. We have a Devo. They then later cook dinner for us. There's a nightly canteen. The middle left picture is our canteen. I recommend the mochachinas. It is just a wonderful little beverage to have after a long day. And the toilets are flushable, which is a big deal in Honduras. Previous place we stayed, you couldn't flush toilet paper. Here, it's all fair game. And so it's just kind of nice regardless of where you serve during the day, the place you're staying at is just a little bit nicer, so that's nice. Some more pictures here of the compound. Imagine, kind of like Bible camp. Bunk beds is basically what we stay in. There's a pavilion that has 8 or 9 hammocks that are set up, a little hammock place to hang out in. There's a ping pong table. You see the German shepherds there, and I felt very safe. I felt safe everywhere we go there, but particularly back at the compound, I think you'll feel very comfortable there. So let me just give you a little bit of the geography here. So we will fly into to Comayagua. I'm probably saying that wrong, Erica, sorry. We'll fly in there, brand new airport. The The retreat center is down south. We will drive about an hour and 40 minutes past Tegucigalpa on our east side. Interestingly, our congregation supports the Trujillo Children's Home. It's part of our budget here, part of our mission that we support. It is located up on the northern coast there. I want to overlay now a map which is very fuzzy. It's not very readable, but I just want to talk a little bit about the crime in the country. This is a crime map. The darker the color, the denser the crime. And so, again, very fuzzy, but I want you to see that the worst of the crime is up north, specifically in San Pedro Sula. That is maybe the most dangerous city in the world. Lots of crime, lots of drugs. The arrows up there show the flow of drugs. A lot of it comes from Africa. It'll go through Honduras and then up Central America, up into the U.S. and other places. And so you have different pockets throughout the country, but the big predominant part is up north. And as you can see, we're flying in further south, and our retreat center is even further south. And so I can't sit here and tell you there aren't risks. There are always risks on a mission trip, and there's always risks going to a third world country. I can just tell you from my experience working with Torch for several years, they do everything they can to mitigate that risk. And I was talking to Tim the other day about some of the gangs and the drugs, and he goes, I know a lot of those gang members, and they love us. They love what we're doing. And I was like, what are you talking about? We're a church group. And he goes, we're building homes for their grandmothers. And we've built however many thousand of them. And so they know that we have a reputation, even amongst the gang members, for the work we're doing. So he says the last thing they want to do is mess with us. In fact, when they see our yellow torch buses, they would probably come to our defense if anyone else tried to mess with us. And so, again, I particularly feel like it is a safe place to go. And let me just say, on a personal note here, that verse we read earlier that tells us to go, I think going, I think when God tells us to go, wherever you're called to go, it involves some risk. If you're going to door knock in your neighborhood, there's probably some risks there. If you're going to go into a prison, there's some risks there. There is risks in ministry, and there is risks in going. But my biggest fear as a Christian is not getting harmed in Honduras. Okay, that is not on my things that keep me up at night. That's not things I worry about. My biggest fear is getting to the end of my life and meeting my Maker on Judgment Day and never having taken any chance for Him, never having taken any risk for Him. I want to humbly fall before my Savior, and as He looks at my life, I hope there will be examples of me having taken some risks in going. Okay, so I think we have to be willing to kind of break out of our comfort zone, whether it's locally or internationally, and take some risks for God because He's worth the risk. He really is. And again, I don't want to have to face Him never having done anything bold for Him and never having taken any risks. So that's my personal belief. That's my personal calling. That doesn't mean everybody has to go to Honduras. I don't want you to do anything that you're not comfortable with, but there's some discomfort involved in it, and that's part of just doing ministry. Preparation. Let's talk about that. We first of all need to be praying. That can begin today. Pray for yourself if you're considering going. Pray for the team. Just pray that it will all come together. There is some paperwork that's involved, and I will get to that briefly, and then we'll have more to say to the individual people that are going. We will have monthly team meetings starting in February, probably an hour-long meeting. Sometimes we'll have food with it, and we'll get into more specifics about the language and the culture and that kind of a thing. You will need to either be fully vaccinated for COVID-19 or within 72 hours of your flight taking off, you'll have to have a negative COVID test that's uploaded and the paperwork and all that. So, and those rules change all the time, but that's as of today. A passport valid through 2023, and that can take some time, which is why we're having this discussion in December. You need to get on that if you don't have a valid passport, and they want it to be through 6 months after the trip in case anything were to come up and you were delayed. We've never had anyone have to stay an extra 6 months, though. The other thing is you need to memorize, I say this somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but you need to memorize Philippians 2:14, which says, do all things without complaining or disputing, okay? I can tell you in Honduras, there is something to complain about every moment, literally. When you get off the plane, that was awfully hot on that plane. Customs, we've been standing here 45 minutes and the line is not moving fast enough, and that's aggravating. It should be more efficient. We then go and maybe we stop for lunch and they get your order wrong because you weren't standing next to Erica, and you complain about that. And then you get to your room and the bed isn't as comfortable as home, and I could go on and on and on and on. There is always something on a mission trip, and in Honduras particularly, to complain about. And I can just tell you, we really encourage people not to complain. Number one, because it doesn't change anything. And number two, it's kind of a morale killer when people are just, just complaining about everything. So we call these 214 violations, and we will talk to the team more about this, but when you hear somebody complain, we just all agree that you get called out for a 214 violation. And one of the trips I went on, I think my third year, I was complaining about customs, and one of our teenagers said, Mr. Johnson, 214. And I was like, enough said. I just had to pull my act together. I was not following my own principle here, or Paul's own principle. So we try not to complain, because there's always something to complain about, and again, it's a downer. Okay, how to help? Well, you can sign up to go. We need people willing to go, and the deadline to sign up is January 1st. As I said earlier, you can be praying for the team that goes, for them individually, for them to be able to get the money together that they need, for their safety, and we also want to be praying for opportunities to share the gospel. We want to have those encounters with people when we're handing out food, or when we're doing whatever we're doing out there at a hospital, at a children's home, an opportunity to connect with someone and bring a smile to their face and show the love of God. That's huge. That's a big deal. If you're able to donate funds, we would love to accept them from you. As I said earlier, I believe the figure is going to be $1,000 to build a home, and also supply it with a starter kit. So if you would like to have a home built, we're already doing one. We have the money to do one so far as a congregation. The elders have set aside funds for that. If you would like us to do a second or a third, and perhaps you have someone that you would like to do that in honor of, a grandmother, or somebody here, whatever, somebody in your life that's been meaningful to you, we can make that happen. Either we'll build the home, or one of the teams coming in after us will, and we'll do a plaque and dedicate it to that person. And then again, if you can't go but you can donate funds, you will enable other people to go, because there probably are people sitting here that go, I would love to go, but 1,100 is too big of a number for me. And so you can help to offset the costs. And that's something you can do by seeing one of the elders, seeing Josh, writing a check, and they'll put that into that fund for people, and we'll have more funds available. All right, moving on. So for those planning to go, again, we want to sign up by January 1st. The sign-up sheet is now on the bulletin board by Wayne's office, kind of about eye level. You will need to do an application, which I have, and I will be sending that to the people that sign up. You will need a letter of recommendation, and assuming I know you, which I think I know most people in here, I'm willing to do that for you, or you can reach out to somebody else. But we want a letter of recommendation that someone knows you and knows your character. We want to kind of know the people that are going. The leaders want a short essay on why you want to go. This is for, like the letter of recommendation, is for first-time participants only. Just a short essay. They just kind of like to know what's motivating people. Why are you on this trip? That helps them to know who's going to be on the team. It helps them to maybe customize some of the devotionals we'll have, and just to kind of get an idea of what people want to get out of this trip. It's a good no one likes to write essays, but it's a good process for you to go through to process why you want to go, and it's good for the leadership on that end to know. There's a notarization form. If anyone's under 18, the Spanish government requires a consent form, which also must be notarized, and that gets into trafficking concerns and that kind of a thing. An application fee of $75 and the first payment of $300 are due on January 25th, okay? January 25th. So that's why we're having this sermon today, is to give you a little bit of time to do that. And again, with money that comes in, I look at the names on the board, we see how much money's come in, and I would be able to communicate, I may be able, hopefully be able to say that that first payment's been covered and we're good to go. But we'll see how the Lord works in our hearts. You can see the rest of the fee schedule there. So ultimately by April 1st, we make the final payment for a total of $1,100. And again, if you put your name on the list that you want to go, I will be sending you the details on each of these things in the paperwork. Okay, I just want to say a word as we start to wrap this up from the scripture that was read earlier, from that beautiful scene in the Bible of the final judgment. And I want to read a little bit from that scene, Matthew chapter 25, if you want to be turning there. In verse 31, Matthew 25, starting in verse 31. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit on his glorious throne. Before him will be gathered all the nations, and he will separate people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will place the sheep on his right, but the goats on the left. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me." Then the righteous will answer him, saying, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? And when did we see you a stranger and welcome you, or naked and clothe you? And when did we see you sick or in prison and visit you?" And the king will answer them, "Truly I say to you, as you did it for one of the least of these my brothers, you did it for me." Then he will say to those on his left, "Depart from me, you cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me no food. I was thirsty, and you gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and you did not welcome me in. Naked, and you did not clothe me. Sick and in prison, and you did not visit me." Then they will also answer, saying, "Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and did not minister to you?" Then he will answer them, saying, "Truly I say to you, as you did not do it for one of the least of these, you did not do it for me. And these will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous into eternal life." So when we talk about going to Honduras, we are talking about the least of these. We are talking about the least of these. You are going to experience, those that go on the trip, you're going to find the least of these in Honduras, and you're going to find them every day. And I can tell you, it will break your heart. You're going to see some things that will break your heart, some things that will keep you up at night, just thinking about how this can happen, how this can exist in our world today, people that are hurting so much. I can tell you the Honduran people appreciate what we're doing for them, but they don't want our pity. In fact, I will tell you, and I think Janet would say the same thing, the average Honduran that you meet is probably happier than the average American, particularly the children, the American child that you meet. The children there don't complain about not having the latest iPhone upgrade. They don't complain about the internet being down. They don't complain about the temperature in the building not being good enough or whatever. They are grateful for missionaries. They're grateful for everything that we can do for them. But they are generally happy people and loving people that have very close families. They just are in a bad place, and they need people to show them the love of Jesus and help to bring them out of that. And so again, these are the least of these. And I can tell you, and I kind of alluded to this earlier in some of the songs that Brooke led, got into this, but we find the least of these everywhere. Okay, we have the least of these. We have some of the least of these here with us this morning, either spiritually or physically. They are among us in this audience. They are certainly outside the doors here, and they're in this community. They're all around us. And as Christians, we have got to be focused on the least of these. We have got to be sensitive to that. And again, that passage I just read, Jesus is saying, when you see them, you're dealing with me. You're helping me. You're encouraging me. You're visiting me. You're feeding me. You're clothing me. When you see them, you got to see Jesus in that. And that ought to motivate us to want to help whenever we can. The last thought I will leave you with, and then we'll close. The life that you change may be your own. And I can tell you back in 2011, 2012, when we went on our first mission trip to Honduras, I wanted to go there and I wanted to make a difference. And I wanted to help people and feed people and teach people and change people. And I think some of that happened along the way. But I'll tell you, the guy that was changed was me. I came back from Honduras a different person. And I just saw things differently. I still complain. I'm still a 214 violator, but I tell you, I complain a lot less. You won't hear me complain about the temperature in this building. I've never complained about it. And you won't hear me complain about whatever food is put before me or what clothes are in the closet. You're just not going to hear this guy complain about that because I've seen what those guys are dealing with. And so I came back a changed person with a little different heart after what I had experienced. And I can tell you, it can do the same for each one of you. If you go on one of these trips, it will make you come back appreciating so much more that you have, and you'll also come back being able to connect some of these passages we read about in the Bible with something very real on the front lines. Those passages just kind of pop out of your Bible because you've seen how they can play out in a very difficult environment. There was a study done several years ago about young people leaving the church. And the statistics are roughly that young people, when they leave home, when they go off into the world, whether that's into college or whatever, when they get out from underneath their parents, about 2/3 of them will abandon their faith. That's an awful statistic, and I hate to even share it, but it's true. About 2/3, hopefully our numbers will be better, but statistically about 2/3 of our young people will leave the church. And then of that group, about 1/3 will eventually come back. Maybe later on in their 20s, they kind of see the light and they'll return. But part of that study, they asked the ones that stayed, the ones that were still faithful. They survived their early 20s, got into their late 20s. They were still faithful. They hadn't left. They were part of that 1/3 that never left. And they asked them what were the two biggest things that impacted them. And I can tell you, it wasn't the church building, it wasn't the preaching, it wasn't the youth minister, it wasn't any of that. The two things that they listed, number one was going on a short-term mission trip. Those young people said, when we went on a short-term mission trip, something connected, something clicked. Suddenly our faith was not just something we do on Sunday mornings, it just got real. And it connected with them, and they saw the power of God working in the real world, in real situations. And it just changed them. And then the number two thing was going to Bible camp, going to church camp, just getting to go away and be amongst other Christians from their congregation and from other congregations, and just having these intense Bible camp experiences. That was number two. And so I would say to you parents out there, I'm not trying to guilt you into anything, and I can't make any promises, but I will tell you, even if your kids are too little right now, if you can kind of have on your scope, I need to get them to Honduras someday. If it's not this year, someday, I can tell you their lives are going to be changed, and they're going to come back different people. And so it's great for everyone, but it is certainly great for young people to experience. And so, again, I thank you all for listening. I thank you for your support. I want to thank again the elders for green lighting this thing and for all the people that will be involved in it. We will go with whatever number. If I'm the only one that goes, that's fine. If we have 3 people, fine. If we have 10 people, fine. I'm not really concerned with the numbers. I just want to give everyone the opportunity to be a part of it and to participate. If you're here this morning, we want to extend an invitation to you. You may be somebody that is not a Christian and you would like to become one, or you would like to study with us. We have the baptismal ready. The waters are ready. We're happy to study with you. We're happy to baptize you. Or there may be something you heard this morning where you just go, you know what, I I maybe haven't had a heart for the least of these the way that I should, and maybe as part of your processing of that, you'd like to make some kind of a public statement or have us pray for you, we're certainly willing to do that. So whatever your need, we invite you to come as together we stand and sing.